Hello, friends. Welcome to Tank Up, the podcast all about video games and craft beer. I'm your host, Ben. It's episode 369. Hooray! And I'm here with Lucy.
Hi.
Hey.
This is becoming a habit, just us two.
Well, Adel is around now. He's definitely around.
He is.
Next week. I bet my house on next week. I might not, actually.
And then I just won't be there for some reason.
Just ducked out. Out for a little bit. Like, I just got to go to the shop. Thanks, bye. Cool. Should we get into what we're drinking this week? What have you got?
I've got a beer, fresh from Wales.
Yes.
From Wild Horse Brewing Company.
Oh.
Who are in, well, they are in London now, where I went earlier this week. God, it's only been back a day, and it seems like a lifetime ago. But yeah, I went to the brewery there. Just picked up some cans out of their fridge. Had a nice little chin wag with the head of sales, Chris. Very nice lad. But yeah, that's other than Polly's. I think all I really drank was Wild Horse beers. So whilst I was there, and yeah, had like a West Coast Pilsner. Yeah, what else? Saison. Pale Ale.
Oh, Saison right now would be nice.
But the one I picked up, well, I picked up several, but the one I've chosen today is their Witbier. Nice yellow can.
Oh, yeah.
And it's from the Elements series, which explores the ingredients, processes, and techniques, or elements that make up the world's most diverse beverage, beer. Elements number 7 is a wit beer inspired by modern versions of this historic, once almost lost, Belgian wheat beer style. Our interpretation leans on laurel hops and a delicate, expressive yeast for its floral, citrus, and light spice character. This one's 5.2%. 440ml can. Yeah, other than laurel hops, it doesn't mention which other ones are in it. But at least I know those are there.
Cool. Yeah, fair.
Fair. Yeah, I haven't had a wit beer in a hot minute.
I haven't had
always see Blue Moon wherever you go, and it's just like sometimes I'm always just tempted because it is a banging beer.
Is Blue Moon a wit beer? Or is it slightly different? Is it just a wheat beer?
Same thing, isn't it?
Is it?
Yes. So some people, they're like furiously typing on their keyboard, like, she said it wrong.
Well, actually, a wit beer has 4 more hops in than there's 1 more sheath of wheat in a wit beer.
But yeah, I don't know. I there's probably some difference that you somewhere somebody knows. Maybe a lot of people know. Maybe I just
absolutely. And as I'm going to say it, and every single brewer cringes at the notion beer's beer in it. So, and for more beers, I'm going to drink. It's starting to sound a bit like a broken record. I'm going to drink a beer from Arbor because it's around the corner and they keep banging out new beers. So who am I not to drink new beers from Arbor? It's a pale ale.
Bristol.
This one is called Star Sailor. They've changed their can art very slightly. So they've now got this lovely... I can put it more in the light. Where's the light coming down? The light's coming down over here, so people won't actually be able to see it. But it's lovely sort of like orange to purple kind of... not quite grungy kind of effect, but nice sort of like almost watercolors that are sort of just like fading into each other. It's very nice change to their sort of standard counter. As with Arbor, you don't get a huge amount of stuff. It's 5.4%. It's pale ale brewed with Eldorado and Amarillo hops. That is it. So I'm going to drink this. Yes, that's it. Nice can. Basically, that's all we get. That's all we get from this.
Sunset on the equator.
Yeah, almost.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I've already tucked into mine because I've just been parched.
Do it.
Yeah. Certainly looks like a Witbier. Quite clear. I guess it's a bit cloudy. But yeah, it's definitely more straw. I think it's coming up on camera like very orange,
Yes.
like even iron brew color. But in real life, it's very much straw. It's almost the color of the can.
I haven't had a beer from Wild Horses for ages.
But yeah, nice frothy white head, probably about 2 finger.
Mm-hmm.
Smell wise, probably getting a bit of I think you're getting mostly the malts on the aroma. Just slightly bready. Not maybe a bit of lemon, but not much. Not much. Even in terms of the malt, I guess malt is the overwhelming smell.
Which you would, expect. You might get a little bit of sort of with a Witbier, a little bit of spice, maybe a little bit of peppery kind of and citrus sort of notes creeping through. I suppose, as you said, there's a little bit of citrus in there. So
yeah, getting that citrus on the taste as well. But I guess lemon, very much lemon. Not really like anything like orange or just largely lemon. It's not got as much crispness as I'd expect, but to be fair, did take them out of the fridge at the brewery. Did leave them in a hotel room overnight where they were not chilled. I should have just left the fan on all night and just chilled them that way. Then they went into a cool bag on the way back home. So they've travelled.
Yeah. Okay.
And they were in a refrigerated van. So
zero cold chain going on.
Yeah. Just warm chain all the way. But it hasn't got that like carbonation or that crisp that I really want from a Witbier. But in terms of taste, yeah, I'm getting bits of lemon. I think this is just like the completely wrong setting. I should have just drank this one on the beach because that would have just been like very thirst quenching. But it has got a wetness to it where it's like, yeah, it is thirst quenching. It isn't just dry and like not crisp, not carbonated or anything like that. It's yeah, I think the malt, and I'm getting a bit of bitterness as well. Witbier, you're not expecting tons of like citrusy tropical flavor, of course, but I'm not getting much more than the lemon at this point. Yeah, I mean it tastes a little bit like a pilsner, or like or a lager.
It's got a little bit more of a kind of slightly not quite dank, but a little bit more like the malts are taking on that kind of aspect.
Yeah, but it's more malt forward than I'd expect, and I think that's why tasting a bit like a lager, but as I say, you're not getting that crispness or that you'd associate with a lager, not nearly as much. So it has got like a easier, smoother body. But yeah, it's nice. It's nice. It's I mean, we get so few Witbiers these days. You know what I mean? So it's like I can't even remember a good example. That obviously isn't Blue Moon. But yeah, it's not doing a lot, but it's doing enough. It's doing enough to like quench my thirst, give it a little bit of flavor. Probably on a sunny day on the beach or in the park or something like that in the sun. This would probably go much further away, but otherwise it's as I say, it's pleasant. It's pleasant. Nothing that I'd rave about currently in this can. As I say, probably not the best test case. But yeah, as I say, the ones that I had on tap, they were lovely. Like especially the Pilsner. That was West Coast Pilsner. That was really good. So
worth just going to see them then, I suppose. Having a little drive and going for a visit.
Yeah. Just a reason to. This is why we need to like just change jobs and just be like beer testers. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like
just today
give me
we're
these
in
different
Wales.
conditions.
Yeah.
And I'll get me me notebook out in me lab coat and get right off.
We'll send you on a Cicerone course, and you can just then tour the country and be like, yes, this beer has hints of lychee. Nothing else.
Even that,
like, there's no lychee in it. You're like, yes, there definitely is. I'm telling you.
I may be 10 beers in, but I know what I'm talking about.
Brilliant. This Arbor then is an incredibly pale ale. That's so pale. It's not even straw colour. It's like I've drank maybe like 2 litres of water and then been to the toilet. It's kind of, it's along that line of very, very pale yellow. The nose in the can is slightly different to when it cracked. Maybe it's just dissipated. It's just not quite as strong as when the can cracked. But I'm not getting a huge amount off of it. A little bit of citrus maybe, but not much. And again, from the can now, it's kind of almost gone. It's a shame I didn't sort of capture my sort of thoughts on what came out when it cracked. But it pulled with almost no head at all, and you can see that there's almost nothing there either. Just a little bit of lacing, but barely anything. It's got a little bit of carbonation to it, a little bit of fizz. Wow, okay. It's a pale ale in colour. It's a pale ale in its initial sort of taste. But it bitters up massively as that finish comes in. So there's a little hint of citrus right at the front. But then it moves into this incredibly piney, incredibly resinous bitterness to it. And it's almost, because it's so carbonated, it really hits the back of your mouth. And it's very, I think, big in its bitterness. And it's not quite edging towards ashy. It stays in its lane of kind of big pine notes. Oh, this is nice. Hang on. So there's something else at the start as well. Maybe not just citrus. Maybe another fruit in there as well. But it's hard to tell because it really quickly just hits into that kind of piney bitterness. And that overtakes everything. Dries out incredibly quickly as well. And there is this sort of lasting, I suppose, piney bitter note because it's carbonated and it's still kind of a little bit tingly in the mouth even now. But there is a bit of a lasting lemon, echo what you said, a little bit of a lasting citrus and probably more lemon flavour, because it's giving me, it's not quite there, but it's giving me slight washing up vibes. Not in terms of it being harsh, but just the scent. You know, when you pop the cap of a washing up liquid and you get that little waft of kind of lemony scent from it. This gives me that a little bit in the flavour, but as the kind of the lasting flavour, the bit that comes after all of that big, punchy, piney bitterness, when that started to disappear, that little bit of lemon just creeps in a touch. I mean, I like it.
Okay, well, that's good. I just want to come back to my beer for a second, because now that I'm getting a bit more acclimated to it, starting to pick up, I guess, sort of creaminess is probably the wrong word, but the wheat. Ben, I'm starting to pick up the wheat. I guess maybe a bit of banana, a bit of clove, a bit of it's starting to taste a bit more like a wheat beer now.
Good.
Maybe
Getting those extra sort of notes that you would expect it to come through with. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it just need a little longer on the palate for things to come through. But
it's kind of it's an interesting sort of discussion, I suppose, to have in terms of not just the podcast, but in terms of beer tasting. Because we give kind of like, here's the initial impression, but actually after 5 minutes, a beer can taste radically different. And again, after 30 minutes, the beer can taste very different as your palate acclimatizes. As we've talked a lot about kind of having beer on beer on beer and what the effects of a beer previously will do to that. What's the true flavour of a beer? Because, again, we might have a brewer listen and go, oh, that's not the flavour we were going for, but I can see why in the initial kind of crack, why you're getting that from this. Please talk about our beer after 5 minutes, which we don't tend to do. We don't have sort of, this is the start and this is the middle. It's just kind of start and end for the way that we kind of discuss the beers on
at least at the end of the podcast, we give overall thoughts, that we can still remember by then.
If we can remember, absolutely, yes. If it's got a memorable middle to it, and we recognise that journey running through, I suppose. Yes, absolutely. But it's kind of, you could, and I'm sure people probably have done, you could have a podcast that is just us sat here just talking about the beer, talking about 1, 2, however many beers, and just charting what we feel about it over a 15-minute kind of period, I suppose.
Yeah,
20-minute.
We should
period,
do that.
but
just like get like a special, I don't know, 4-pack of some series that some breweries put out.
Blue Moon.
Do that.
Just
Yeah.
Blue Moon every week.
Just four bottles of Blue Moon. Yeah.
A previous podcast or podcast founder with me, Alex, a few years ago when we went on his stag do, his very small Bristol-based stag do, that basically was me, him, and Adel. We just went and got pissed and played a load of pool.
That sounds very good.
We went to this like a pool hall in Bristol, and it's kind of one of these sports bars, pool halls, hang out and drink here kind of venues. It's not quite a snooker club, it's not quite a sports bar, it's kind of somewhere in the middle. But the craft beer of choice there was Blue Moon. And we drank a fuck ton of it. Like we did a few places first. We did the King Street kind of shuffle and a Royal Navy Volunteer and Kongs and Beer Emporium and stuff, and did that. And then we were like, should we go and play some pool? Yeah, absolutely. So we drank all of these excellent beers already. We'll just drink a load of Blue Moon now. It's fine.
Oh, that's it, Ben. You've just brought me back just to being in like one of those pool halls. There are TVs like.
Yep.
And I remember going to one, it was just like they had the most amazing onion rings. I'm just missing those onion rings. But it wasn't those like fancy beer battered onion rings. I'm very much in the camp of give me a dirty onion ring. The breaded ones that are like you can buy for like 600 for £1.
Straight from the freezer.
Deep fry. Yep, straight from the freezer in the deep fryer. Gotten out and they're just yes.
Nice.
Good times.
Bit of barbecue sauce, bit of sweet chili sauce, done.
Bit of mayo, yeah. Garlic mayo if you're feeling fancy.
Ooh. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, garlic mayo and onion rings. That's
Yeah.
Let's enjoy these beers and come on to games, I suppose, and talk about what video games we have been playing.
I don't want to talk about video games. I just want to stay in this moment and just stare idly at the screen for like an hour, just reminiscing of
just think about onion rings.
Yeah.
When was the last time you had an onion ring, Lucy?
Oh, far too long ago, probably. One of the dirty ones. It's been a while. It's been because they're not satisfying if you just get the ones from the shop and doing them in the oven.
Oh no, absolutely not.
Deep fried. Yeah, then you feel real dirty.
Yeah.
You have to get deep fried from a shop. Gosh. I must have had onion rings in the last year. I must have. gosh, I need to just go to a dirty little kebab shop and just ask for onion rings.
Definitely.
Give me 60 onion rings. Like Homer and Simpson when they're like on the raft in the middle of nowhere and just goes to the oil rig Krusty. He goes, I want 600 Krusty burgers. Do that with onion rings.
Amazing. Or when he's in the all-you-can-eat fish restaurant, he just wants shrimp constantly. Just all of the shrimp. You're just there with all of the onion rings, like don't
Yeah.
just being dragged out the door.
And when he sues them, and Marge is testifying, saying that we drove around whole of Springfield looking for all you can eat buffets. And what happens when you didn't do that, Mrs. Simpson? She just breaks down saying, we went fishing. Oh, that's one of the best moments in that whole TV show.
Early Simpsons is still the best Simpsons.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Oh man.
It will be us one day. We'll see.
One day. I've been there. When you just had too much and it's just like, okay, I need something to eat. It's like
just staring at the canal in Birmingham, like, ooh.
You're taking someone, that designated driver, many places just to find the only place that's open. Yeah.
Brilliant.
At like 3 a.m.
On your trip to Wales, did you go anywhere else? Did you go to any other breweries or kind of pubs and stuff, or was it kind of land? I don't know. There's a couple of things there potentially.
The main place that I went there twice was called Taps Micropub, which is where they had a lot of the Wild Horse beers and some Welsh beers on cask and some Pollies, and so I don't think they had any Tiny Rebel, but yeah, that was the main place. Most places that I went though, like even the Pier, they had Wild Horse on tap.
Okay.
That was nice.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's it. I had what was it? Snowdon Lager which is, what was it? Snowdonia Lager or something like that which was actually quite nice. Just out of a bottle. What was it? Snowdon Lager, which is from Snowdon Craft Beer.
Okay.
Brewery in North Wales. It was nice. Yeah, but other than that, no other breweries, nowhere to note. But yeah, it's like, it was nice just having Welsh beers, because Welsh beers are very good. They've got a good scene there. So yeah, drank a lot of Wild Horse. That was mainly the well, not a lot, but I probably only had like 5 pints over 2 days.
Well.
Oh well, 2 and a bit days. No, I didn't drink the last day because I was driving. But yeah, so
fair.
Wales. They do good beer.
Yeah, they do. Absolutely. What else did you get up to whilst you were in Wales, Lucy?
I just walked on the beach. Literally, I just walked up and down the East Parade and walked on the beach on the West Parade. And I went to the summit of Great Orme, which is basically the bit at the end of Llandudno. I think it was like 700 feet or something like that. And yeah, I just literally just sat there and stared at the ocean. Well, I guess
that's fair.
Sea, at the Irish Sea for like hours on end, and just like not listening to a podcast or anything. just staring at the sea. I don't know what that says in terms of my mental health, but it's just like, yeah, just staring at the sea. That's all I did. I walked like, I think it was about 25k over.
Nice.
Two. I guess it's just 2 days. Yeah. All in all, I just stared at the sea.
Amazing.
Literally nothing else.
No.
Had an ice cream, had fish and chips, but I mostly just stared at the ocean.
I know one of the before you went, one of the I suppose, vague notions of an idea was that you might play a little bit
A little
of the
bit.
new Zelda game.
Yeah, I played a little bit when I was at the summit. So it
Oh.
was like, okay, I can just, but it was like maybe like 15, 20 minutes here and there, but
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, I'd rather just stare at the ocean. I don't see the ocean much. I live in Birmingham. All I see is canals.
Play Zelda whenever you like. You're at the ocean, like, yeah.
Yeah. Plus, it's very sunny. Did well with the weather, so literally just sat outside. Didn't have to wear a coat, just a jumper. Just stared. Just stared across the sea.
Nice.
Yeah. The reason I haven't played much Zelda is because it hasn't grabbed me yet, and I know the reason for it is because
Right.
I'm still in like the tutorial area.
Okay.
I think it was the same with like Breath of the Wild, where the start of it you're on is it the Great Plateau or something like that, which is basically the tutorialized area where you don't have enough stamina, or you don't have your paraglider, you don't have anything. It's basically you're in this very, still quite large, but
You don't even have
confined,
nipples, do you?
purposefully. You what?
He doesn't even have nipples at that point, does he?
I don't know, because I haven't looked that closely, because I'm not a freak. Mario, though, does have nipples. But yeah, it's the I'm just off track now that he's talking about Link's nipples, but the opening area, the tutorialized area, it's doing the same in Tears of the Kingdom. That's what it's called. Where you're having to go through basically this ghostly man sending you go to these 3 shrines, and they're quite separated. They're quite far apart, and it's like, okay, it's basically all about traversal with these new abilities that Link has, which basically like Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts, putting things together and sticking things there, and making pulleys and levers and
vehicles,
bridges and vehicles, mine carts. So it's definitely just giving you a tutorial to get accustomed to the controls, which slightly finicky at the start, but then they seem well, you've only got so many buttons to work with. Quite intuitive considering it's like controller and it's not mouse and keyboard. I think the controls are decent, but getting used to that and I wouldn't say worried, but I guess worried about is this is clearly the tutorial and it's wanting you to make certain things to traverse these, because you're basically up in the sky, traverse these like different sky islands. My worry is that after I get out of the tutorial part is like, am I going to want to be experimental in making these things? Because the first game, Breath of the Wild, that wasn't the draw of the game for me. The game was more not exactly traversing it. Traversing was fun, like in the paraglider and getting your stamina up and climbing and this and that, but it was more seeing around what's around every corner. If it's just like a number of like disparate like islands and nothing feels that connective and cohesive, and it's all about how do I get to this next place, but it isn't just okay, like so far I've made the same like minecart like 4 or 5 times, or like the same bridge that's just made out of logs or wooden planks. I've done that, and it's like, are there going to be interesting ways that they can implement these mechanics to make traversal different all the time, or am I just not going to have incentive to, like, maybe there's like this really far off island and maybe that's like enticing for some people to think, oh, what contraction could I make to get over here? But me as someone who, I guess that whole kind of like physics engine kind of thing never really appealed to me.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
or maybe not even appeal. I just never got too deep into it. Am I gonna be bothered about that? Am I gonna be incentivized if it's just like, oh, there's just a Korok seed over there?
Mm.
I guess if it's something like Eventide Island in the first game, where it's like this really far off island, it's like, oh, how do I get there? And it's like, I think the only way would have been, really, other than to build a boat, is like to paraglide, get somewhere high enough, and then paraglide over there.
Mm-hmm.
And there was like a whole different like mini side quest over there.
Right.
So if it has those kinds of things, then yes, I'd be interested. But if it's just like, oh, I'm just going to find a chest or a Korok seed, a chest with a weapon that's going to break,
Yeah.
It's like, so we'll see how it goes. I liked Breath of the Wild enough. I'm not enamored by that first game like a lot of people are.
Mm-hmm.
I found just the exploration, the most appealing thing about it. The story, bad. Dungeons, bad. Didn't like the weapon thingy. I think the only thing that's going to be more interesting about this, and what leads me to tolerate the weapon degradability, is that you can combine like weapons with random items.
Nice.
Like you can put like a icicle on the end of a spear, and it's stronger.
Okay.
And the stats, the damage stats go up. So maybe.
Do you do you know, like, as a game that kind of, I suppose, has lent heavily then into saying we've got this basic kind of build for a game, almost as a sequel, just rip the code, make a new place, as they could have done, rip the code, make a new place, change the order of things a little bit, and we've got a sequel to the game. Putting in this level of crafting and actually making that a little bit more key to exploration and moving around and that sort of stuff. Do they give you, if you go, here is a stick and here is an icicle, and does it tell you what you're going to make, or is it more about that kind of experimentation as well with items?
Yeah, it's more of that experimentation. I think that will be interesting to see, because like I shouldn't have watched the latest. Well, I think it may have been the only demo before release where it was like, oh, if you put like an eyeball on the end of an arrow, it basically becomes like a targeted missile.
Right.
And it's like, oh, so there has to be more stuff.
Yeah.
I'm very early. I'm talking from probably massive place of ignorance. If anyone's got further and people are like, oh no, there's so much to it, then I apologize. And I'm sure there is. It's just that right now, getting out of the tutorial, not a slog, but it's like, it's very much focusing on the part of the game which I think I won't enjoy as much.
Sure.
Because, as I say, like that whole creativity and physics, manipulation kind of stuff, it doesn't get me hot and heavy like other aspects of gaming. That's why some things, apart from I guess maybe Minecraft, most things I'm just like just I like directed things. I like puzzles. Like maybe the dungeons are like way better. It's so annoying, like when a game like this comes out and like when you actually have interest in it and there's like gazillions of articles, because I stay off social media anyway, but when I'm just like, oh, what's the gaming news, and just look at my list of articles in my Newsify account, it's just like everything Zelda, and I get it. Yeah. That's how websites stay afloat, but God, please, is there any way just to mute them all?
I've seen a lot. Even without having searched for the game or anything, I see a lot about it at the moment, and lots of, we've made a hoverboard of some kind, or we've made a paraglider of jet plane or something. I'm like, what? What is this now? What? This isn't Zelda. This is strayed so far from what you would kind of, I suppose, think of Zelda.
It's Kerbal Space Program there.
But it's also an interesting kind of take that they've gone in a very specific direction with it, right? Or it feels like they have, without having played it, and with your kind of early impressions, it feels like they've very much lent into something which seems a bit kind of foreign to the franchise, and seems something that's kind of been not shoehorned in at all, but something which is very new for it. And
yeah, I mean, I think the first game laid that groundwork with how the world interacted with each other, and you know, but I think this was probably a sensible and probably the most natural path to take. But yeah, in terms of like the series as a whole, the franchise as a whole, it is quite alien for sure.
Yeah. Do you see, and I suppose the way that we have spoken about Elden Ring and the not just the change to the kind of Dark Souls, Soulsborne formula that Elden Ring brought to that series, but actually the implications that that game has for open world games as well, and kind of the impact that it might sort of have on open world. Do you think, and because the first, because Breath of the Wild was talked about in that kind of way, wasn't it? It's like, oh, it's a revolution in open world games in terms of kind of what it does. Does Tears of the Kingdom kind of push that along in any way, or is it, or again, from your kind of very early impressions?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, early. Just in terms of, I don't think so. Like, I don't know how many open world games will actually take the effort to create a whole world where things make sense in terms of like the real world. Like, you know, this catches fire, we're gonna make the whole forest burn. You know,
Far Cry 2
stick in like what? yeah. But how many Far Cry 2s are there? Like, you know, I think.
Yeah.
But even with like the first Zelda, very much inspired like Elden Ring in sense of that it was this open world, go wherever you want. You know, Elden Ring doesn't have as many ways to interact with the world as Zelda.
Sure.
It's just that kind of like let the player go, give them freedom kind of approach to game design, which I think is probably more what I want from games, because yeah, there are a ton of like, there's borrowed from, more so borrowed rather than inspired from like a lot of other games like Far Cry 2, like Minecraft with the crafting and stuff like that, the way the world interacts with things. So I think Zelda and the first game, whilst it was, you know, different in many ways, I think it was mostly iterative of like most of the big games that have been part of the industry for the last 10, 15 years. I don't think it was as revolutionary as people think it was.
Sure.
I just think it was, okay, this is Nintendo. They've got time and money and polish, and this is just a very good accumulation of the things that have come prior to it. I don't think it was like, oh, this has never been seen before. It's like GTA existed, you know? So
And
I don't think a lot of devs have the time and the money to make fully formed physics systems.
Yes.
And if they do, I don't know. I think most of the things you've probably seen like in indie space with a much smaller world, or like worse graphics, or like Minecraft voxels. You know,
again, in terms of like Zelda as a franchise, it's an interesting point to kind of be at, because you know, going back to kind of like early Zelda games, we've got lots of games now which have spawned out of that kind of archetype, I suppose. And then there was a bit of a change from kind of those early Zeldas into the N64 era kind of games. You know, it went 3D, but it didn't change a huge amount about actually what that game was. It was still an adventure game. You were still going around the dungeons. You were still collecting weapons to be able to kind of get through stuff. Majora's Mask, a little bit different. It had that time shifting kind of mechanic to it, and that time limit on what you can actually do within that game, that looping kind of cycle. Wind Waker again then shifted slightly, and it's a bit more exploration in the boat and this kind of thing. This feels like it's that kind of shift, right? From that, it's that kind of mid-generation sort of shift where they've gone, yeah, we've got a game, but let's just throw something completely different into the mix. So Wind Waker had the boat, the world was flooded, you were sailing around. This feels like, yes, something's happened. The world is now in the air and fragmented for some reason, or it's a new area. I don't know. Again, having not played it. We've now got to give you the traversal to be able to get around it. And rather than giving you something to do that, we're allowing you the freedom to experiment and create and craft and do these various different things, because we've recognized the massive popularity of survival games and crafting and Minecraft and all of these other sorts of things. So let's kind of bring that in. It does feel like it's a bit of a mid-generation kind of not even improvement, but addition to.
Yeah, absolutely. It is like the Majora's Mask. Yeah, same engine, same everything really. But just little things added on. But it's like you spend so long making a game just to throw that out, throw out the engine, throw out the character models, art, everything. Even for a company as big and cash flush as Nintendo, it would just seem like, why don't we just go back to the well and just make some more of this, add a few things and just try and make it better or make it slightly different. So yeah, I get it. And yeah, I had enough. My experience with the first one was good enough that I had enough faith. It was just like, I'll just what I liked about it was the discovery, the exploration. I'll go in blind on this one and just take a punt. It's like I had enough money in my account that was just sitting there always. So I was like, why not?
Yeah, it's fair. Absolutely. Nice.
But as soon as I finish this, if I ever finish it, I'm going to give my Nintendo to my nephew anyway. So it's just like...
That's it. You're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The swan song for this console. And it runs well. A few frame rate dips, especially when there's like a lot of foliage. But otherwise, it's hanging in there better than I thought it would be. Because the first game was kind of choppy at times, but I mean, I guess 5 extra years of learning that system
it just massively.
Yeah, and there's not a ton more going on, and maybe because of the islands being separate, there's not a lot of like clear open space just to run into.
Sure,
maybe that's a purposeful design decision to separate everything. I don't know, but it's running okay. So that's
cool.
Good.
Nice, good to know. I suppose to move in to what I've been speaking about quite nicely from that, because I've been playing a sequel which changes up the formula completely. To
Leisure Suit Larry 2.
Yeah, Leisure Suit Larry 46 spanked monkey or something. I don't know.
That's probably one of the subtitles.
I've been playing Darkest Dungeon 2, which I've spoken about before in terms of the early access pre-release kind of build, but it released towards the start of May as its kind of fully featured 1.0 version. And I think I spoke about it a few episodes ago, because I'd gone back to it to have a look at it before that full release, and had a few issues. And actually, I think I didn't list them. I kind of echoed and told everyone to go to listen to a Waypoint Radio episode where Ren had spoken about her issues with Darkest Dungeon, which I echoed, basically. And everyone should do that, even though Waypoint now sadly doesn't exist anymore. Hopefully everything is still there on the internet for people to be able to look at.
Oh yeah, they're going to keep those podcasts up for a while, well, as long as they will be hosted, and they were saying on the last podcast that the community's looking at a way to archiving everything, which is really good.
Yeah.
So.
There would have been a ton of people who jumped on YouTube and saved videos and streams and all of that sort of stuff as well. So, but I am very, very happy with what they've done with Darkest Dungeon 2. From the issues that I had with it. So, for people who haven't listened to that episode or are unfamiliar, Darkest Dungeon 2 changes up from the original game where it's a roguelike game, but Darkest Dungeon basically has you living in a village as a set of heroes, and you go on a run of an area and run through fighting enemies, progressing through the area, progressing through the dungeon. So you move through, you pick a door, you go through and there's an encounter, you go through and there's a chest, you go through and there's something else until you get to the end of a dungeon. And you can pick from a cast of characters which all have different kind of archetypes, fighter, mage, healer, and they're not quite as predictable as that. There's a little bit of difference to them. So rather than a healer, you've got like a plague doctor who can either poison enemies or heal allies, kind of thing. Or I suppose less of a kind of fighter, more of like a tank that can also help you with like your stress levels, because in Darkest Dungeon stress is a big kind of issue as well. And Darkest Dungeon 2 keeps all of those elements, but rather than you running through a dungeon, you're progressing along a route in a coach. So it has a similar kind of setup to something like Slay the Spire or Inscription, the early stage of Inscription, where you've got a map and you basically pick a route, you move through this route, and on screen you see your coach moving through. You might have small encounters kind of on the route and various other things that happen. But part of my problem was that the encounters were incredibly hard, and that there felt like a real lack of progression through it. And both of those have been improved. So on my first run, I got through to the main boss. So I did the couple of areas that you have to progress through, got to the last one, progressed to the main boss, and lost. Second run through, progressed through to the second area, managed to pick a route which hit a lair which has like a sub boss in, has like a boss for that kind of area in, and died to that. So failed at that. And whilst I'm hitting all of these bigger kind of blocks, and again getting to the boss again on another run and failing at it, I feel a slight sense of progression, and feel like at least I'm understanding why I'm being defeated, and potentially what I can kind of do to help that. Not just in a run sort of sense, but also kind of as an overall roguelike kind of game, where there is this overarching sense of progression and character progression as well. So you don't kind of upgrade characters necessarily on a run, although you do get what they call mastery points in certain encounters. When you get to the end of that run, you get to an inn, and you can then spend those mastery points to upgrade a skill that you have just by one. You don't then get to the next inn and you can upgrade it to level 2. There's just one upgrade for each of those things. So it kind of encourages you to try different builds, try different upgrades as you sort of progress through. But there is an overarching element of getting candles. And the candles allow you to unlock progression for characters, which are kind of like levels for characters. So actually, you can do a few runs and you've collected enough candles to level everyone up to like level 3, and that might be that you've got a better resistance to poison or bleeding. You've unlocked new skills. You've got a different path to go down as well. So everyone starts off as a wanderer. And then actually your plague doctor then might become a surgeon, or might become something else and something else and something else. So there's a few of those things that are still to kind of explore and unlock, and it's kind of almost like different builds for different characters. So whilst you've got maybe 10 characters to choose from that you can take as a foursome kind of on this run, you can also then diverge into different kind of roles for each of those characters as well. So kind of what you assume is like a thief becomes a marksman or a rogue or something, which gives them a different set of skills.
That's interesting.
Which is more benefit. Yeah, the game very much relies on the position that characters are in during those battles. So everyone is like ranked. Basically, everyone is set up. So you've got a side view of everything, and everyone is ranked 1 to 4. You yourself and all of the enemies, and various characters work best if they're at rank 1, rank 2, rank 3, or rank 4, basically. And changing those roles changes where those things are more beneficial. So for the Plague Doctor being a surgeon, it's more about healing and that sort of stuff. But I would imagine, I haven't unlocked that one enough, but I would imagine there's something that would change the position to make him more DPS rather than kind of, more damage rather than healing. There's other characters that you can bring in for kind of healing and that sort of stuff as well. So it can change that dynamic up a little bit. And I'm almost, and I haven't I have thought about it, but I haven't quite searched yet for like optimal builds for these kinds of characters, because this game is all about exploration and it's about uncovering exactly kind of like what you want to do with these characters and playstyle. And I think they've toned or turned down the difficulty enough that when you do die, you don't feel like you have just ended your run and that's it. Like, shit, I've just wasted like an hour on this run and I've got nothing from it. What you've got is, you've changed a couple of their roles up. You've got that little bit of knowledge to understand what may have worked and may have not worked. And these candles, which allow you to unlock these characters' skills and abilities a little bit more, are dropping more regularly than they were in one of the kind of, pre-release early access versions. I think I was kind of doing a run and getting maybe like 10 or 12 candles, and you needed 3 or 4 to be able to progress a character.
A whole chandelier, that.
Well, I'm getting like 3 chandeliers worth per run now. So you're actually getting closer to like 30 candles. So you can unlock characters, but you can also use them to improve not just the characters, but your kind of the run itself. So you can kind of say, I want to put some more candles into exploration. So when the map appears, there's not as many question marks along it. More things will pop up and tell me what the routes can be, so I can plan the route a little bit better. And actually, I can know that I don't have to fight anybody until I get to this final kind of battle. Because the game is all about absolutely
a shared currency.
Yes,
rather than
completely.
like, I need this other thing to unlock this, and then that's cool that you can mix and match and
very much so, very much. And I think the second game is much more about atrophy than the first game as well, because things like stress and health and things like that, they're very limited in when you can benefit, when you can get those back. You want to fight people because actually your Plague Doctor has got a healing ability which he can do during a battle. So you can just cast that a couple of times, get some people back up to full health, which actually between this point and this point wouldn't have happened if you were just exploring and going through kind of like different areas. And you go to like a shrine, which progresses a character's kind of story as well. So there's that element to it too. There's caches, so you can go and just get a lot of items. There's fights, there's the field hospital, there's merchants, there's lots of different things that you can kind of go to on the map. So again, being able to unlock those extra bits, it feels much more like a progressive kind of roguelike game with that overarching, like everyone absolutely loved Hades for kind of the idea that actually you could unlock and you could make him beefier between runs. So actually, run number 6 went much better than run number 3 because you'd progressed enough that he was twice as beefier than he was on run number 3 as he is in kind of run number 6. And Darkest Dungeon has toned...
everyone was beefy in that game.
That's very true.
Beef City. Yeah.
And Darkest Dungeon, whilst it's Lovecraftian and grimdark, everyone is pretty beefy in that sort of game as well. But it's definitely balanced out its sense of progression versus just that unending wave of atrophy that the early access games or early access version just felt. It just felt like everything was going downhill. And this feels like it's going downhill just at a much nicer degree. So,
and much steadier pace rather than just falling off a cliff.
Absolutely. And whilst I haven't beaten the boss, even on the first chapter, and there's 5 chapters to play through, still not through the first chapter. I think I'm 6 runs in of this version of the game in the first chapter, and I've got to the end boss, and I would hazard that on the next run I'm going to be very close to beating them. Even in the first run, I was quite close to beating them. You know, the first boss is a set of 4 like, they're not pendulums, they're kind of like tokens on the end of chains, and each of them kind of, they take it in turns to do stuff. So the first one says, you can't do melee attacks. The second one's like, you can't heal. The third one's, you can't do ranged attacks. The fourth one's, you can't use items or improve your stress levels. So, and it rotates through that kind of thing. And a lot of the game is about strategy and management, things that I absolutely love. So, like, cool, I know this one's going to stop me doing melee attacks. Absolutely fine. Because I've upgraded these ranged ones, and I've got these items. So actually, if I can take out the one that's going to kill my ranged attacks first, then I just get to use all of those through the rest of the encounter. Or if I've got a lot of items and I've got really high stress, let's take out that kind of token first, and then I can just go through and defeat the rest of them. So it's all about that learned knowledge and understanding kind of how these enemies kind of fight, which is exciting because I'm still in chapter 1 and I've got 4 more chapters to understand and learn and play through. That it is about atrophy, it is about being brutal and difficult and stuff, but just in almost in a fair or a much fairer kind of way than the early access version was giving me.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad it's come full circle, because listening to you and Waypoint, it just seemed like that first game is so beloved. And like, for its punishing difficulty, but also its fairness. I mean, the first game was in early access. I'm sure they ironed out those kinks. So the first time around, but I'm glad they've been able to do it again. I mean, the community was probably telling them things they already knew. It's just, but yeah, that's good. I'm glad because that first game's beloved. So would have been a bit rubbish if the second didn't live up to expectations.
Absolutely,
that's good.
You can kind of almost see, like, they know where they want the game to be. So let's make the early access hard, or go through waves, right? So early access, when the game kind of first released into early access, it wasn't that difficult. You got meals and health between, at the end of each run, so you could beef everyone back up to full health and reduce all of their stress and improve their relationships. And then suddenly, with an early access patch, that just dropped down massively and became just, all of the enemies were much harder. You didn't seem to hit as well, and it just became a slogfest to try and get through it. And now they've kind of gone, oh yes, here's that lovely middle point that we would like everyone to kind of be at. It's interesting in how much that is almost kind of manufactured to keep people on the hook through early access to get to this point, and then capture everyone else who's like, I'll wait till the game is fully released to actually be able to kind of play it, and them going, yes, this is now the exact moment and level that we wanted it to be during our kind of release. But it reduces down that. I think one of the other problems was it felt like things could be quite long and take a while. And I think because of that change in difficulty and the enemies aren't quite as hard, you're only fighting them for like 4 rounds rather than 8. So that reduces that kind of playtime that little bit to make it feel, and there's not as many encounters, not as many fights through a run. There's lots of other stuff to kind of lots of other areas that you can hit on one of those runs. So it doesn't quite feel as long in each of those runs, and probably the first chapter makes you go through 2 areas before you get to the mountain, which is where the boss lives. And each of those areas maybe takes 20 minutes ish. So you're maybe playing 20 minutes, 30 minutes. You're playing 40 minutes to an hour to then get to a boss, roughly.
Yeah.
Which I think seems like a reasonable amount of time. You know, if you die before you get to the boss, yeah, you spent like 40 minutes, but you haven't invested a huge amount. And there is still a sense of progression. You know, you don't die and lose everything. You die and things like the candles that you've earned carry over and you take them with you and all of this sort of stuff. So there is still that sense of progression. You don't have to beat the boss to go through with all of the items that you've come up with. So yeah, they've balanced it very, very well from the previous comments that I'd had. So yeah, really enjoying it.
Good. You'll have to update me once you beat those wind chimes.
Yeah.
And see where it goes from there.
Yeah, completely.
I took a little punt on a early access roguelike. Yeah, it was not Peglin. So I do want that. That's basically the Peggle roguelike that's in early access that I will pick up at some point.
Made by the Peggle developers, or just a
people who like me just want more Peggle, and they've made it into like a RPG roguelike kind of game. I think it's called Backpack Hero, isn't it? Yes. Yes, which is basically, you know, the Resident Evil. You've got your briefcase and you're like rearranging things in there. It's basically that with like Slay the Spire. And the way you arrange things in your backpack, you know, there's all these different conditions. Like, okay, if I put this like little amulet next to this shield or this sword, it gives it more defense or more attack power. So it's all about how you arrange things. And yeah, just going through like Slay the Spire dungeons. So yeah, played a demo of that, I think, a while ago. Then I checked back in recently, now that it's on sale. I was just like, yeah, I'll see where this goes. It seems fun. But speaking of progression, don't know how much there was in that demo. And how much there's going to be in the game. I think that's probably one of the things people are, not complaining about, but the most feedback is on about just like run-to-run progression. So yeah, we'll see where that goes. But, seems cool. Seems like something to keep your eye on. And I was going to play Cryptmaster. I even launched it. And then I was like, actually, I've to be somewhere else. Let me go do that. And didn't get around to playing it. So that is on the docket for soon. It just looks cool.
Will the game does the demo still live? Can you still play the demo if you wanted to?
No. But I just right click, browse local files, and just launch it straight from its folder. So yeah, whenever there's a demo fest, people just download the demo on your computer as long as you got the space, and then just launch it later.
Yeah,
because it goes when you go onto the demo page or just where it is in my library, it's like purchase.
Yeah.
It's like just keep the demo.
Cryptmaster was good. I really enjoyed it. It was probably one of the best demos I played during the Ludonarracon fest. I think that it worked and it didn't in some respects. So it wants you to basically type out stuff. And it's all about the exploration and uncovering of powers through uncovering letters, right? So you might defeat an enemy and you go to a chest and you can pick a letter. So it says an enemy dropped like 3 letters, an O, an A, or a T. Which one do you want? You go, oh cool, I'll have the T. And you've got 4 characters, and along the bottom they've all got a keyword, and the T might fill in on any of those kind of keywords. And so like for the first character, the first word is, without giving too much away, hit. So you can then type HIT on your keyboard, and that is what the character does. It will hit stuff. And when you're in combat, you're rolling through these various, and you're typing every time. You're rolling through various actions that your characters can take, but you have to have uncovered them to know what those actions are.
Right.
If you were to just be like, oh, I know hit, that's the first character, I'll go into the like 3rd or 4th encounter that you find, and that's the only action you have, you're going to die. You need to have explored a little bit to have uncovered letters, and you can do a little bit of trial and error. You can just type stuff in when you're kind of just in the world, and it will appear. So again, for one of the characters, there's a very easy, and they're all 3-letter words to start off with. There's one that I had, and I'm like, fuck, what is that? I've got an A and a B. What comes before it? What would they do? Oh, I've worked it out. I understand. Cool. So I just typed it in, and I'm like, oh, this character has discovered this action. I'm like, cool, I can now do that in those combat encounters. So it has a little bit of allowance of you just kind of trial and erroring your way through uncovering these keywords for these characters to be able to do certain things. But it gives things kind of quite thick and fast, like the letters, so you don't have to do that so much. And it's a really interesting aesthetic. You move through the world very easily. You know, you can just play on the keyboard, basically, if you wanted to.
I saw an option for like joypad. So
yes, I did too.
That's about... Maybe it's just with movement, and everything else you have to do via voice. Or...
So there is just there's 4 options. There's keypad. There's keyboard, and voice, joypad, or joypad and voice. And so you can kind of basically say, or I would imagine you can say the words. I don't know whether you have to spell them out, because I didn't choose that option to play with. But it's a very interesting game. So yeah, definitely be looking out for that when it close to release. Which store page? When
2024, I think.
Oh yeah, next year.
Yeah. It has typing in it, so I'm sold. There was a game that was doing the round like last week. Gosh, that's was it Touch Type Tales? I know that it's a typing game mixed with RTS.
Okay.
Is that what it's called? Touch Type Tales or something like that, or Typing Tales.
I've written the word touch, and there's some things that are probably a little bit risque.
Well, it's not on Steam for a start.
Right. If you write the word touch into Steam.
Epic. No, please don't. Just a lot of anime games. It's Touch Type Tale, and it's on Epic Games.
Okay.
No, I just heard like someone talking about it in the podcast. Can't remember which, but I think it might be Nextlander. But yeah, it's an RTS. I'm watching the trailer for the first time now.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, typing. I don't like RTSs, but I like typing.
So I think one of the elements of Cryptmaster, which was a little
Yeah.
bit difficult, was that you're in a combat encounter and you have to type stuff out.
Yeah.
And it makes it
And I
really
don't mind, like,
frantic, really tense.
dungeon crawlers. Yeah, I don't mind dungeon crawlers, like first-person dungeon crawlers. I find them quite interesting.
But absolutely, but the battle encounters are real time. So
yeah, that's fine.
the enemy. Yes, you are typing absolutely, and you'll type and something will go in, and then you'll go to type a different thing, but then you'll be like, oh shit, that's the wrong thing, and you delete, and you have to retype it, and your enemy's going like bam, and he just absolutely smashed you.
That's like typing of the dead.
Yeah.
Whereas this is like touch type style is a proper RTS where it's like you're gathering resources and stuff like that. So it looks like more busy work than typing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I might stick with Cryptmaster. There needs to be more typing games just in general.
Yeah, I'd agree. Touch type style's got almost a little bit of something like Banner Saga or Jotun kind of almost aesthetic to it, whilst being a little bit kind of paper crafty and stuff as well.
Is it Epistory? Yeah, or maybe it's not Epistory. Maybe it's Epistory. I don't know. Typing Chronicles. Epistory. Which is atmospheric action adventure game where you play as a girl riding a giant fox who fights. Okay. It's got typing.
Okay. Yeah, I'm up for more typing games.
Yeah, I think I've owned that on I think that's been free on like Epic Games or whatever. So. Left PC Game Press, Left EA.
This is what we find. There's just this really weird subgenre of typing games, and there's thousands of them.
Yeah, it was free earlier this year, January. Nice. Yeah, there needs to be more. I've looked far and wide.
Well, whilst people develop typing games for us to play, let's talk about our beers and round out the episode and return to them. Lucy, the Witbier. I imagine it's all gone.
Yeah. Maybe I should play my teacher's typing. Anyway, yeah, it was good. The Witbier. As I said, maybe once I became more acclimated to the taste, like picking up on different notes like, banana, clove. Maybe a hint more fruit than the lemon, maybe a bit of orange or something like that. But I think it was a nice beer and not a great wit beer, but still nice, decent beer. I've got like 5 more cans from Wild Horse, so maybe I'll get through those throughout the weeks and
not just a Witbier.
See where those land. No, I think I picked up a few different styles, like pale ale. I had a saison. Ooh, this is a Witbier. I think there was a cold IPA, maybe. So yeah, a few styles to go through.
Nice.
Check out.
Nice. They had a bit of a core range. I remember seeing sort of several of the same beer for quite a while that they put out. And again, this must be like 2 or 3 years ago, maybe. And we I've drunk Wild Horse on the podcast previously. If people want to go back and listen to those thoughts at some point.
I think maybe the Buckskin Lager, because that was on tap quite a few places.
Right.
So
there's one that's got like a bus stop. It might just be called bus stop, or lamp post or something like that. Really ambiguous kind of.
Picked that up, but I don't remember.
That's fine. We'll find out in the coming weeks what Lucy has in her stash.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Wild Horse for this week, good.
Yeah.
Perfect. And I would echo that with the Arbor Star Sailor. It's good. I enjoyed it. The bitterness does abate slightly as you drink it, and your palate becomes a little bit more acclimatized. And there is a little bit more fruit in there. Again, I still can't quite pick out what it is. There's that bit of citrus, but there's that slight kind of more tropical stone fruit in there as well, which is very, very light. Maybe it's not even stone fruit. Maybe it's something like pineapple or slightly ripe mango that's kind of coming through. Something that's actually quite weak, that it changes it from a lemon squash to a tropical fruits squash. You can't quite work out exactly what that extra bit is to it. But the bitterness did last. It lasted quite nicely, and it was big enough that whilst it abated and disappeared a little bit, you're still getting that towards the end of the beer. You know, that resinous, piney bitterness is still sticking around. It doesn't just kind of water down to that initial kind of flavour. So yeah, it's a lovely beer. I encourage Arbor to make more cans that are this
very pretty,
lovely patinated kind of finish to it. So yes, there are the beers for this week. And the games. Lucy, yes.
Just to go back, it's Tramcar from Wild Horse Brewing.
Oh, yeah, it is called Tramcar, yes.
Yeah, and their standard session is Nakota, which was in a lot of places. So, yeah, I think they've got a session and a lager. So then, part of their core,
nice.
Nakota and Buckskin. And yeah, the Tramcar is was it an American pale? American IPA. So, yeah.
Perfect. Good. Potentially more to come on the podcast, I suppose. Depending on whether you get out or not.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll drink them all by next week.
Nice. Good. Yes. So the beers, the games that we've been playing. Come and tell us what you've been playing. Have you been playing Zelda? Have you been playing Darkest Dungeon 2? What's been going on? Come and talk to us on the Discord. And you can get me at Nova_47 and Lucy at
Juicy Loose 9.
Or all of us at Tanked Upcast, and hit one of us up for a link to the Discord. There's various other things, outoflives.net, to look at the articles that essentially Carl is posting and see our beautiful faces and the beers that we are drinking over there as well. Lee's got a few reviews coming out soon, and we've got a few things in the works too that will be up on Out of Lives very soon. Is that a boo in a car?
Shy guy. Shy guy.
I'm looking at you on a very small screen. I'm looking at you on this screen rather than this screen, because you're tiny on this screen. But you're very
shy guy. It's a little shy guy from Mario 2, and I saw a funny article. Was it on Hard Drive about? Doesn't matter. It's very esoteric. About shy guy living off his residuals from Mario 2.
Nice. Can people just type in Shy Guy and Hard Drive and it will basically come up?
Hopefully.
Yeah, good.
Or some weird furry porn. We don't know.
That's a good point to end the episode on. Everybody disappear now and search to your heart's galore. I suppose whatever you want, really, on the internet. Be as deviant as you need. But look at Shy Guy and Hard Drive and see if something joyous comes up, and you can tell us all about it.
Shy Guy still living good life off Super Mario Bros. 2 residuals.
I wish I had some residuals to live the good life off of. That'd be perfect. If you want to help us in that endeavour, listen to the episode, tell your friends, we'll get some sponsorships, and then we'll just live like kings forever from the podcast and previous episodes. Yeah, that's it. Thanks for joining us this week. We've been Tanked Up. Goodbye.
Bye.
You can tell I'm tired because I did the outro like 4 times.
www.outoflives.net